There. Let me do the introduction first, and then you and I are going to talk about you.
Okay.
Last time I had on Ron Caine, everybody. Oh, don't do this. I had way too many I statements. I was a baby at doing this. Just forgive me. I was talking too much about my dang self.
That's
This
all
time,
right.
this time it's going to be about Ron. 2003. See if this. Let me do the introduction for Ron. Ron Caine is a dark, dirty, and absurd comic. I can't wait to have him explain that, the absurd part. He's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. When he's not telling jokes, he produces a lot of comedy. Performing or producing, he loves comedy. So that's the most humble intro ever. Welcome to the stage right now, Ron Caine.
Thank you for having me, Linda.
Thank you.
It's fun being back and talking to you.
Yes, thank you for giving me another chance. I appreciate your coming back.
Hey, I appreciate you giving me another chance because I think the first interview we did was like 2 years ago, maybe even longer.
Yeah, long time ago. I've never talked to anybody who's ready to jump off of a bridge before.
Yeah,
Not until
this was
after the interview.
yeah.
Let's talk about absurd, dark, and dirty. Let's go. Tell me all about your special brand of comedy. I've watched some of your interviews, but from your mouth to all of these little God's ears on earth, sell us on who you are on stage, because I'm already sold who you are in person.
Well, on stage, like I said, I love dirty and dark material, and being a comic that does dark and dirty material is not so it's not an easy path because you really gotta, especially doing dark material, you really gotta hone it because you know you really gotta walk that line where it's uh, because my intent is really never just like, oh, I'm gonna shock you with something wild, because I mean that only goes so far. So the real meat of it is if you can do something dark and dirty and make it somewhat palpable for people, they really tend to like it. I'm proud of myself of the work that I've done on my act to convey that to people because it wasn't always easy. It was not always easy. Like I ate I ate a lot of shit early on, but I mean that's comedy in general, and depending what path you take in comedy, it can. I don't want to say any path is easy in comedy because it's not, but I mean each path has its own obstacles. Is probably the best way to say it. And the the absurd part comes into like so I'm doing that dark and dirty stuff, but I want people to understand that like yeah, this is all crazy and kind of messed up, but in the end, it's still just a joke. And and I love absurdity too, even like doing dark material, like especially if you're like on this line of dark material, then you're like, should I go here? Or maybe I'm going to kind of make it a little weird. I like putting that little twist on it. But in the end, I want people to see like uh, this. I'm just telling like weird, dark, and dirty jokes. And I know when I go up on stage, people automatically maybe have a preconceived notion of like what's going to come out of my mouth because the way that I look, like I got this gray beard and stuff like this, and wearing my little beanie. So especially in Pennsylvania, the look is like, all right, is this guy going to say something racist? Is this what's coming next?
So, do you have a favorite absurd joke or an absurd joke that you don't mind burning here? and letting us hear? Because I want to hear how you take something dark or dirty and how you make it absurdly Ron Caine comedy. Something like
Uh,
that. Tell me something. I would love to hear this. I don't go
well,
spying on people. I could have watched videos, but I would rather hear it from you.
yeah, I don't know, I'm trying to think off the top. Like one of my, uh, a joke that I'm working now is that I really love, and I'm still working it, but it is my neighborhood's gotten pretty wild lately. My neighbor up the street was recently arrested for killing and partially eating his wife. And this haunted me for weeks because that cookout was so damn good. Then I have some more tags and things after that, but that's that's one of my favorite jokes currently, and like I love I just like that one, especially when you drop it, and because people are like, "What cannibalism?" But that joke has got gets such a great response. I guess maybe because out of left field it comes, and like some of the absurd part is like talking about the Tupperware, like should I return the Tupperware because I don't want to seem like a nosy neighbor? Then how then I noticed that they didn't spray Pam inside of it because the red line was on the Tupperware. But that's I mean that's just like one of the jokes that like I like doing jokes about my those jokes, and I have jokes about myself. Like my mom, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's like last year, and I've been doing some jokes about that.
Really?
And yeah,
That
and
must be hard because that's so close to home.
yeah, it's really hard, and but I've been weeding my way through it, and now at presently I got like two solid jokes uh, off of that with my mom, and they've been doing well. Just and I mean that is dark. It's painful. It's it's close to home, but at the same time, uh, you know, I feel that if you're going to be a comedian and you're going to go that route, you got to kind of live and die by the sword.
Yes.
And when I first started doing those jokes, I would get a lot of groans and things like that. And so, I've changed a couple things. And now when I do it, I'm getting laughs, I'm getting some groans, but then, I'm bringing them along for the ride. And to me, that you may not like that joke, but this is my pain, and this is how I deal with it. Oh no,
Yes.
dance club.
This is how I get clickbaits. Oh my goodness. So are you able to tell me that any of those Parkinson's jokes about your
uh,
mom?
no, not yet. No.
So I have a daughter that hasn't spoke to me in 9 years. Do you want to hear the dark joke I came up with?
Sure.
Okay. I have a daughter and it's kind of sad, she's 47 and I raised her until she was grown. It took me 36 years, but hey, you know, so I'm a little slow, you know. And but all of a sudden she can't speak. And I thought, well, she just because she misses me. Nope, she can speak to everybody but me, turns out.
Yeah, see, I like that, and I'm sure, I know probably for you there's, plenty of pain in that joke, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure on some level it feels good when you let that out.
Yes. So it's been 9 years, Ron, and a lot of depression, a lot of, to the edge stuff, coping. And I came up with an even darker joke. Want to hear it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so naughty. Okay, it's bad and naughty and yet truthful. Okay. I know I don't look like it, but I had an abortion. I gave birth. She's turning 47, and I had an abortion. And the one that I let live, the one that is 47, I shouldn't have said let live. The one that's 47, she doesn't speak. She had not a word in 9 years, right? It's all right. Don't worry, I'm fine. But the thing is, have you ever wondered if maybe you aborted the wrong child?
Yeah,
Yes.
see, I can get behind that because especially as a parent, it's not that you want that to happen. It's just how you cope. It's how you cope.
That's
Like
it.
the one thing that I'm sure you've seen it too, being around mics and everywhere, is that like I guess the big bit that seems a lot of comics have right now, and is that there's always some bit like fuck these kids is it seems to be like almost a standard bit at this point. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I understand where it's coming from, but when you hear a lot of people kind of setting up the same way, I'm just wondering if, I mean, to each their own, whatever works for them. But uh, like, I can understand where those comics are coming from, especially having kids. But yeah, I'm not sure what I was trying to say there.
I've got something to say about it. I hate hearing that. It just hurts my heart so much because, well, number one, the children are our future, and they're mad at the older people like me, like boomers, for messing up the planet. And so so they hate us and we pick on them. So where's it all going to end? Like, can't we just get along? I mean, yeah, okay, so we messed up the planet. They have to fix it, but we don't have to, I've seen young people poke on older people, and it just, I don't know, I just hate it. I hate that we're picking on each other.
Yeah, the one thing I hate seeing in comedy is punching down because you're supposed to be punching up. That's where you need the punch because that's who really needs it the most. And what? Yeah, ageism. That is. I could definitely see that. Especially. I mean, I'm on the older side too, and I mean we're both older comics, but yeah, like in this area, I don't really see a lot of the ageism stuff, but we definitely have a lot of the uh, in this area we have a lot of subtle racism and things like that.
Yes, yes. So I got told by a comedy club that they thought I had a lot of potential, but they were never going to book me because I'm too old and I have nothing in common with the young people. So that was like 5 years ago, and it hurt me so bad. And then I finally came up with an entire bit around the pain to make people laugh about the ageism.
Yeah,
But, you know, and now, it was a young lady that told me that I'm too old and I have nothing in common with the young people. So now I went and researched all the things about all the generations. And in there, I found things we have in common. Like,
yeah,
they don't want to work at a job for very long. Well, hello, I'm a comedian.
yeah, and that's I find that in like insane that Booker would tell you like you're too old because I mean just even from a comedy club perspective, you want all voices, not just you just don't want one because what's the point of that? It's boring, and that's almost it's the flip side of that person saying, "Well, it's only all white males. It's only all white. We won't do all white males." But so now you're gonna go, "All right, we're not gonna do all white males. Now we're not gonna do anyone past a certain age. Why? Why would you do that? You wanna you want to attract as many customers as you can." And
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. No matter what age a person is, yeah, they're gonna have different things going on in their life, but there are still so many things that are relatable between someone that's older. and someone that's younger, because I routinely perform for like a younger crowd all the time. My mic that I produce on Monday nights, that's in downtown Harrisburg, so it's a very young and uh, hip crowd, I guess. But the vibe is good, and it's it's more of just I prep them and say this is a comedy room, so you're gonna hear good, you're gonna hear bad, but that's what it is. It's comedy, and that's what it should be.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, can you brag for a little bit? Because you've been in the comedy business, I'm gonna say more than 15, 20 years. Am I right?
Five,
5?
five.
And you've already traveled with Mark Norman?
Well, I was on a show. Yeah, I didn't travel with him. I was on a show with Mark. Um, I opened for Creed Bratton uh, last year, which which turned out to be a a crazy show because I have the story if you want to hear it.
Yes, I do. Please shut me up.
um, so last year I do this show opening for Creed, and I'm supposed to do 30 minutes, so no big deal. And you know, the, I reach out to him like 2 days before, like, hey, what time do you want me there? What time we kicking this off? Blah blah blah. And so the the club tells me, oh yeah, be there. We want to put you on at 7 because Creed wants to go at 7:30. Like, all right, fine. It seems a little early, but all right. And so I get there. I do up on stage. It's a great crowd. There's a lot of people there. People are still coming in, and so I get to about the 28-minute mark. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I've made it. I've had a pretty good set. Uh, and so like I'm ready. I'm just like, all right, I did it. I did it. So now all I gotta do is bring Creed up. Done. And so I do my last joke and I do this intro to bring Creed up. And I'm like, hey, everybody. So the room is full of people. I'm like, hey, everybody, are you ready for Creed Bratton? I give him a little intro, say, Creed Bratton, no Creed. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? So I'm like, all right, everybody, maybe it's like Creed Bratton, nothing. And now at this point, like the applause is like kind of died down. There's like maybe a couple people. It's And I'm asking the staff at this point, like, hey, where's Creed at? On the stage. I'm like, where is Creed at? And they're like, we can't find him. I'm like, all right. So we'll go find him. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do another joke or two. So I do like 5 minutes in, maybe not even 5 minutes, and someone comes up to the stage and they're like, uh, yeah, we we messed up. Creed's not going to be in the building until 8, and he's not going to be on stage until 8:30. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And so they give me the choice. They're like, you can get off stage right now if you want, or if you want, you can keep going. We'll let you keep going. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I was like, what the hell? I was like, have someone get me a beer, and I'm going to keep going. So I did I did another 25 minutes. So I wound up doing an hour that night. And like that that last 25 minutes, it was all over the place. But I survived. I made a lot of new fans that night. And I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, it was the greatest 25 minutes. No, I mean I was pulling out all the stops. I started pulling out the darker material because that's what I have. I gave them most of the stuff I thought they could be good, handle fine. But yeah, and I finally got off stage at like 8 o'clock. I was like, hey everybody, you put up with me for an hour. Thank you. And
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
yeah,
So
but
they went with the darker stuff though.
yeah, they hung in there with me. I did a lot of crowd work as well because I was like, I got to do something to keep people interested. But yeah, people hung with me, and it was it, it was wild. It was wild.
Oh, that's incredible. So that night when Cree came and he found out you'd done an hour already, what'd he say to you?
Well, and that's the other thing. Like I didn't even really get to meet Creed. He just kind of showed up and kind of went on stage. Then after he was done, they took me backstage to meet him. It's like, oh, this was your opener, and he just fist bumped me, and that was it.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Tell
So,
tell me about your experience with Mark Norman.
uh, yeah, with Mark, that was an outside show in November, and uh, I uh, I got a guest spot on that because the comic featuring for him, I knew that comic, and I have a really good relationship with him. And I was like, "Hey, can I get a guest? Can you see if Marco let me have a guest spot on this?" And he talked to Mark, and Mark was cool with it. So they let Mark let me come do a guest spot, and that was really cool because I got to hang out with Mark. Uh, after the first show and while we were waiting for the second show to start. So that was cool, just hanging out, talking to him. And at that point, I was at 3 years in, and he was like, "Ah, so you're like at that stage where where it's like all kind of gooey right now, and things are sticking, and you're kind of getting a little bit, you know, getting some road underneath your feet." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And so, that was great. I did a great uh, that was a great guest spot. It was a lot of fun. The audience dug me. That was incredible to do. And this past year too, I opened for Vic DiBitetto,
Yeah.
and that was uh, that was a cool show. I did 30 minutes in front of him, and I had a pretty good set there too.
What do you have to say to you after?
Vic was very cool. We didn't talk too much like after, but like when I showed up and I had my wife with me, but like before the show, we just hung out with him for a good 40 minutes or so, and he just talked. And it was great because it wasn't he would just talk like a normal person. It wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna roll jokes by you or anything like that. And it was just so cool talking to him because just of like how long that he's been in the business. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, man, my first open mic that I went to in New Jersey, Andrew Dice Clay was the host. And it's like, wow, it's just so weird thinking of that happening.
It's crazy. That's like Chris Rock got me into comedy. What?
Yeah, it's yeah, so I've been I've been kind of fortunate on like some of the shows I've been a part of. Like a few months ago, I was up in Brooklyn, and I got on a show, and Matt Broussard was on that show as well. So that was pretty cool. Then I got some other stuff cooking last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I guess almost about 2 weeks ago, I performed at Philly Punchline on a
Love that.
showcase, and I'm very pleased with myself. I had a very good set, and so hopefully
Yes.
good things will come from that as well.
Yes. I love that place.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's just nice to work in a comedy club.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Those come few and far between, when you get a real club that fills the place for you. It's so nice to just walk in and perform.
Yeah, this past weekend I hosted at the Harrisburg Comedy Zone, and I had hosted there once before, and that was like a year ago. And I was sitting there, I was like before the performance or before the shows and stuff. I was thinking to myself, I was like, I was there last year, and like, how, what did I screw up really? And I remembered it was like how how I was doing my crowd work, which was terrible at the time. Because sometimes I would do it right, but then sometimes I would start a bit I would start a joke, then I'd stop to do crowd work. Like, what kind of psychopath is doing this? But because even when I did that, the headliner that I was working with that weekend, he was like, "Yeah, you normally don't see people crowd work in the middle of their jokes." But live and learn. That's what comedy is.
That's
You
it.
you got to learn from your mistakes. And then I went back because I had video from those two sets from last year, and yeah, I did so much better this time. I was very pleased with my hosting this time.
What all did you like put into your hosting that makes you pleased with it? I love talking about hosting. It's such a great skill.
Yeah, I do a lot of hosting, so much hosting. Um, yeah, for for this set, they ask you to work clean as the host at this club. So you got to do, a full solid 10 up front of clean material. And so I did that, and yeah, it was for me there on that stage. It was more pacing and things like that. Because when I hosted there the first time, I had a few hosting gigs and stuff under my belt. But since I've been producing shows and things like that and mics, like the number of hosting that I've done is insane of the amount of events. So now it's almost like muscle memory.
Wow.
And I'm doing a little better too of actually trying to making the crowd work interesting, trying to find what is interesting in that crowd that I can pick apart, if anything. And sometimes you can't, sometimes you can't, when sometimes you try and get the audience to give you some softballs. You think they would, but sometimes it's just funny when you talk to some audiences and they kind of clam up.
Yeah.
Then other audiences, like, everybody wants to talk.
Yeah. I went to a burlesque show the other night and I was supposed to do 10 minutes. And so I did. And in there, my third joke is, so where are all my sluts, right? They're at a burlesque show. Usually that gets a big laugh that the old lady is talking about sluts, right?
Yeah.
And they just I had to drag it out of them that they're a bunch of sluts. Like, you came to a don't you can't fool me. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
They finally coughed up that they're a bunch of sluts. It was like, it's funny to me. I don't know if they enjoyed it, but I got, a rise out of them trying to act innocent at a burlesque show.
Yeah.
So, um, there's a lot of people that go into comedy and never take into consideration any elements of hosting. So if you had advice, nuggets to leave behind you, um, for younger comics who think they know everything about hosting or crowd work, either of those or both of those, give us like the top couple things not to do and a couple great things to do when you're hosting, doing crowd work.
I would say definitely, definitely don't try crowd work in the middle of a bit. Don't do that. I've learned harshly. Don't do that. Uh, I don't. I think really the best advice that I could really give somebody on hosting is that um, let yourself be vulnerable. You're never you as a host. You never kill. You never kill as a host. You can
Wow.
do well. I think you can do well, but you really can't kill as a host. The only host I would say probably in comedy that is a known killer host would be James Mattern, Mad Dog James Mattern out of New York. He's like the standard, I guess, almost for comedians hosting shows. That guy, James is a monster when it comes to hosting. But overall, I guess for the most of, you can do well at hosting, but you never kill.
Tell me about that. The theory behind it is you're burning all the laughs in the audience if you do, so you should hold back and let the other people take the shine.
Uh, Maybe a little. It's more. I think it's more of. It's not so much the other comics. Is that when you're hosting and you're starting, that room is absolutely cold. So as a host, it's almost your job to lay down and take the fire for the comics and to put you in a mindset like I know this joke is funny. It may not kill in this crowd because I'm warming them up, and because there could be different things going on. If you're starting a show, sometimes people are still coming into the room. They're still getting seated, so it could be noisy. So you got to be able to work through that. But yeah, just the lift sometimes it takes to bring a cold room just to get them a little bit warm is really the best thing you can do as a host. Like if you can get that room warmed up, then it pays dividends because the show will be better. Because
Got it.
if you can get them a little bit, then the comics they should be able to pick up on that. Maybe the comics early on the show, maybe they're not as seasoned, so they'll get a little bit some laughs. But as you get deeper into the lineup, especially like when I produce shows, like the comics later in the show should be able to take whatever's happened before them and hopefully capture lightning and ride it. But too, the other side of hosting too is if someone bombs completely on a show, you gotta come up there and be like, "Hey, everybody, let's kind of reset, and reset the room, and hopefully you can lay down a one liner or two and get them back, and so the next comic can attempt it and see what happens."
Yeah. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened in your comedy when you've been on stage or you've watched somebody else on stage?
Uh, I, I think for me, it's just if the funniest like I had a great moment in Philly. When I did punchline, I was setting up this joke, and this lady yelled out because I was talking about relationships, and she yelled out like "sex," and so that was a lot of fun because it was a moment. I was like I could pick up on that, do a little improv and crowd work, and I was able to take that little moment. I got them even further on my side. And then when I went into the next joke, it helped out so much.
I love that. Love that. What's the scariest thing that you've seen happen in your experience? Weird
This
or scary?
the scariest moment I had was last year. I was competing in Philly's Funniest, and I was up on stage, and there was a moment that I could have taken advantage of, and I didn't. That the other comic had set up, but then like I didn't like it started my set, and I'm only doing like 5 minutes on this, and I get into my set, and I'm probably I don't know like a minute or two in, and I just don't feel. You just have those moments where like nothing feels right. You're like I just can't for some reason I'm not hitting the road. And so I did okay, but then I just had a moment when probably like 2 minutes in and it crossed my mind. I was like, should I just get off stage right now and walk off stage? So while that's happening, I'm having that inner dialogue in my head. And at the same time, the other part of my brain is like, we're doing jokes. I'm still telling jokes. And yeah, so that was kind of scary because it's like I never had felt that way before. But then, like, I told my inner monologue was like, "Shut up, idiot," You're finishing this. You put in all this work. So what? You're gonna fail this time. Who gives a shit? Take it and move on.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's encouraging, because we all have times when we don't do as well as we had hoped. And your attitude towards that is so stellar that is something that other comics need to hear, is that we don't need to be perfect every time or get great reactions to move on. And
Yeah.
like you come away from it and you sit there and try to learn something from it or
Yeah.
make any changes. Have you ever like not done well and not been able to figure out what you could have done better?
Uh, Probably early on. I would say probably early on, I probably had that thought. But, like, now, because I'm so conditioned to, listening and watching myself, and, that's probably one of the hardest things too in the beginning to do is just listening to your sets back. Because most people hate hearing their voice, I hate my voice just like probably so many other people because of my tongue and stuff, but I just hate it. But, like, I'm so conditioned now to listening, but even sometimes when I'm listening to sets back, I'm like, "Ah, why did I say that there?" Or, like, or if I listen to something, like, a week before and now I've changed it and I'll listen back and like, "Oh, this was a good set, but it been even better if this joke would have been out and this one here, the way that I do it now." So that's kinda like what I beat myself up on. But I'm so conditioned now where I just listen to sets, over and over and stuff. And sometimes, like I'll listen to good sets, especially the one thing that happens when I listen to a good set or like a good set, I'm like I listen to it so much and then I I hate it. Where I'm like, this like, I'll listen to it, and because I've picked it apart so much, like, I'm like, "Yeah, this wasn't that good at all." I think that's actually one of the things I have trouble with now because sometimes I'm so hard on myself, even times when I've done well, and, even my wife like, I love my wife so much because she's always honest with me. And because I've told her, it's like, I want you to be honest with me, is if what's good or what's bad, because it's the only way you learn. If you're gonna have real criticism to get better. Like I have a I have a comic friend who's doing some great stuff. He's got a lot of stuff cooking, and but I have and he's a lot younger than me, and like we have a good friendship. But one of the things I love about that friendship too is like he's not afraid to tell me like, hey, this needs to be better if you want to do this, or because I appreciate that. I don't want someone to lie to me and think, oh yeah, he'll be like, hey, give me the heads up, and he's not a dick about it. It's just real criticism that we can give each other, and I
Yeah.
think that's very important. And what really solidified my wife uh, uh, liking or not liking my comedy is probably when I was at like 3 years in, yeah, at the 3 year point, somewhere around there. That's when she finally said, yeah, I think might be able to do something with this. You got some skills. You're funny. Like she isn't embarrassed. She is not embarrassed now at all when I do stand up. It's like, oh wait, he can actually do something.
That's so cool. That's precious when you have that support.
Yeah, and, I'm lucky to have it because she did, she told me early I asked her, I said, "Well, when I started early on, what did you think?" And she was like, "Yeah, you weren't really funny." And I was like, "I know," and she even said, she's like, "I'm not sure what he's gonna do with this." But I told myself, like, "If I'm gonna do this, I wanna be good at it, and I don't wanna be that guy, like, 'Oh, this guy tells jokes,' or something." Because when you tell people that like at work or something or just in passing or whatever, they think, well, yeah, no one ever really thinks of like an artist at this level, if you're not like a name like Segura or Kreischer or somebody like that, they don't think you've done anything. And and my favorite thing is when people say you're a failed comic. Well, yeah, every comic is a failure. Even the ones at the top,
Wow.
they're failures. They'll tell you that. They'll tell you how much they've failed. And it's perseverance, it's tenacity, and it's just being able to, I don't know, maybe we're just gluttons for punishment.
So who's your favorite person that you made laugh and they came up and said something to you afterward? Who would that be?
I don't know if I would have a favorite. I think it's
Somebody that impressed you or something that made you feel tearful, if it's okay for a guy to feel tearful, I don't know anymore.
I've had people say, come up to me and say, "Hey, that was really funny. I liked it. It's different." I like hearing that. That makes me happy, and it's just cool. I think when anybody, even in a small bar show, will come up to you and be like, "Hey, I really like those jokes. It's different. It's I mean, there's some validation there, of course. It's a little bit validating, but at the same time, for me, I like it knowing that they came out. I wrote these jokes. If they laughed, maybe I'm hoping it's kind of like for me, like when I'm up on stage, the only thing I'm thinking about is just living in that moment. I don't think about anything else except what's happening right there in front of me, and good or bad. So that's what I'm thinking about. And so, like, if they're at a show, I'm kind of hoping they're thinking the same thing too.
Wow.
Like, maybe they've had, a shitty week or something, and they come out to your show, and if you can take their mind off their life for 90 minutes, that's a win. Where they didn't have to think about their job or anything like that. It's like, hey, I had a good time, and I had some laughs, and I mean, that's why we're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Well, have you had somebody come up to you and be offended or upset at something that you poked fun? Because you're absurd, so you pushed the envelope.
Yeah, there is, like, the Creed when I did the Creed show, I had a moment like that because I had this one joke that I'm still doing, but the setup was a little different, and, like, the setup at that time was because the way I look and stuff, and I was, like, talking about how, white men being persecuted or whatever like that, just for the setup of the joke, and, someone left me a review, like, the next day, like, something about, "Oh, white men don't have it that bad," or whatever, and, like, what the person left me is like, "Well, you didn't listen to the entire joke, because everything she said was just the first sentence, the setup to get me to where I need to go." So,
Exactly.
I don't know how upset, people say they get, like, or I did a gig probably when I was like 2.5 years in for opening or doing a set in right before this band plays. Like the band knew me, and so I've always heard gigs like that were risky. Playing with band. So I was like, I want to do that because I want to see how risky it is. And so I went up and I did all right. It was, the room was a little weird because they're there for music. They're not really there for comedy, which, I understand. But then at the time I had this joke about suicide, and like the setup was not great at all, I would say. And like I started setting it up, and there was this lady standing at the end of the bar, and we're probably like 20 feet from the stage. And I start that, and she's like, "Oh no." So I just thought that was great.
Did you riff off of that?
No, at the time, I just kept going, which, uh, yeah, she didn't like the joke.
Oh man. Well, what is something that you'd like to say to comics that don't take risks? Because you're a risk taker. You're dark, dirty, absurd. You're taking risk. You're taking the bullet for people that are playing it safe. And you don't mind branding yourself right out of the gate. So when you go and watch other comics who don't take risks and they stay in the safe lane, do you have anything to say to them about maybe trying something more edgy or being more dig deeper and get more into the joke or be more authentic and real where that came from, or do you just let people be who they are?
I'm not. I don't really just go out handing advice. Like if someone will come up to me and like, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" Then I'll say something at that point. But just in general, yeah, as comics, we need to take risks. Uh, like me, I beat myself up because I don't feel like I still take enough risks, and like I'm moving more and more into that territory where like I'm putting myself in. Like I've always tried to put myself in uncomfortable positions because of like anxiety and stuff. Like I have a very weird relationship with my anxiety. Like I almost embrace it sometimes, even when I'm having an anxiety like attack or whatever, and my heart's like racing. I'll still just head and plow right in front of it. Like I've had that happen. Had anxiety like going up on stage and being in the middle of like my anxiety like going crazy, but then I'll get up on stage and I plow through. And so doing stuff like that is helped me. But yeah, I think as comics we gotta take risks. And I'm a firm believer in like what Mark Maron has recently come out and said is like you can say whatever you want, which is true, but you just gotta understand that maybe there might be consequences for what you say now. That's really the big difference. Because he's absolutely right. You really can go on stage and say anything that you want, but then there may be consequences for that.
Yeah.
And like at the open mics that I run, I tell people like, uh, you know, this is a comedy room. You say what you want, but you can't like lead a rally or anything like that. Or you're not going to get up there and like as a white guy sit there and say the N word. And one of the things I like to say at the beginning is, white guys, please don't say the N word. If you would like to, I'm sure some of our black comics would like to talk to you after your set. But I mean, other than that, yeah, you really gotta, and it's not easy for people to take risks sometimes. I definitely fall in that category sometimes. I work hard to be better at it, but some of it just takes time and having the confidence and to say what you're gonna say. Like, 'cause like, I'm doing those jokes about my mom with Parkinson's, and it's not to make fun of her. Some people say, "Oh, you're making fun of her." It's like, no, no, this is more about me. This is,
Yeah. It's
this is
about you
more,
coping with the diagnosis.
yeah, and some people don't like that, but you know, eh, people that's what people do. People have people in their lives that have cancer. People have alcoholics in their lives. They have depression, suicide, anxiety. It's it's all about being human. But yeah, comics need to take risks, and that's part of it. If you don't like it, then don't listen to it.
Exactly. I go with that. When you sit and listen to open mics and sometimes showcases where it's like a glorified mic. It's not just you know what I'm talking about. But sometimes it's so hard to listen to people that have maybe a poor choice of topic, and poorly developed and lack of stage presence and there's no persona to go with it, like, and they're trying to sell something that's maybe a couple of years down the road they could really sell it, but today maybe not. And you know you've had those moments when you're watching people and they're performing stuff that's above their pay grade.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I know I've done that, like where you try and tackle a subject, but as a comic, you're probably not at that point where you can handle a delicate subject like that
Yeah,
and be funny because that everyone gets it into their mind, especially with so much stand up out there now on all the social platforms, all the crowd work videos and things like there's so much out there now. And when people come to mics to try it, like, oh yeah, this is easy, I can just say this, and it's really not. It truly is an art form, because to be able to take whatever subject matter you're talking about, clean or dirty, and to hook people and bring them on the entire ride, where there's ups and downs, as it should be. That's a skill level. That is a skill level. I mean, Nate Bargatze is not where he's at just because he's got a couple good jokes. There's a reason that he's there.
absolutely. So tell everybody what all you're producing and where you're going to be performing, and run through your social media stuff so they can follow you, please, Ron.
Okay, yeah. Producing wise, besides doing stand up, the other thing that I really like is I really love producing shows. Uh, yeah, like I enjoy like the business side of comedy as well. But I like producing shows. I have a monthly show that I produce, and that's done great. Coming up on in July, it'll be 2 years. It'll be a 2-year anniversary for that. Uh, I have another show at a brewery that I do that runs like every 5 to 6 weeks. That happens. I just did a show there 2 weeks ago, 2 3 weeks ago, and the place was packed. It was a sold out room, so that was awesome. Then I produce. Well, I have a showcase that I produce on Mondays, every Monday in Harrisburg, and I have a regular open mic on that I produce on Tuesdays in York. That's a weekly. Then I produce some ticketed shows. I have a ticketed show coming up Thursday, May 11th, at another brewery. So that one is really just starting to promote that one. Uh, like last year, I produced 25 shows, and that's not including my mics. So yeah, it's crazy. And my goal was to go up to like 40 to produce 40 shows this year. I don't know if I'm going to hit that. I might hit the low 30s. I did I produced a show for this hotel in the area, and that last month, and that went great. But now they just had like their director and stuff quit, and so now I just have to wait for them to get somewhat normalized. Then I'll bring comedy back to there. Then yeah, then I produce these other one-off shows too occasionally that I like doing. I just like putting comedy in different places. Then I'm trying to get into a regular club to produce a show as well. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'm getting close to that. And then I'm also I'm working helping almost like a management for comics, helping another comic plan his tour at this point. And so I got some stuff cooking there for him, and yeah, so that looks. I like doing that too. So it's yeah, I got my hands in a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and if anyone wants to find me on socials, it's Facebook, it's Ron Caine Comedy. Uh, say Instagram Ron Caine Comedy or just Ron Caine, and that's Caine. And you can find me on TikTok, same name. I do have a Twitter. I really don't do much with Twitter though. And I occasionally I do make TikToks and reels. I can't. It's insanity.
And your YouTube is Ron Caine Comedy or just Ron Caine? I forget. Ron
uh,
Caine.
yeah, it's just Ron Caine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went on there today, couldn't find you, couldn't tell which one was you, so I subscribed to them all.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
It's true. Now every Ron Caine's gonna think I think they're funny. I'll just every time I see a post, I'll just say very funny. I won't even listen. So, well, give us one little tidbit about comedy in like if you had to sum up everything you are or everything that you're gonna strive to be in the next year to 5 years. Give us a tidbit on what you've been and where you're gonna go or both of those, one or the other. Give us a snippet.
uh,
I don't know what I'm saying other than close the show.
I would say, yeah, so I started this journey. I guess still officially an open micer, as they would call it, uh, producing shows and things like that. In the next couple of years, I definitely want to be performing out on the road more. Um, I want to produce more out of state shows. I've done two so far, but I'm trying to expand my reach into other states. And yeah, so I want to do that. And yeah, I just want to perform, hopefully for bigger audiences and more clubs and things like that. I think that's what I really want to do. And yeah,
I love
just
that.
just
I
anything
hope
to do with comedy.
anything to do with comedy. I hope you come to Vegas.
I am. I'm actually going to be in Vegas the end of April.
You are?
Yes.
I'll be in New York City at the end of April.
Oh, damn.
Are you going to be performing?
Yeah, I have two spots already. Um, I fly in on Tuesday, the 25th, so I'll be doing a mirror show. I'm doing just a guest spot on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Steve's show, I'm going to do that Wednesday. And so then at this point, I'm probably going to try and get one more spot out there somewhere.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of other names that come to my mind. I know there's a few more people that are very open to booking people.
Okay.
Some places aren't open to booking or getting, referrals. You know how it goes. But I know
Yeah,
those two are so open. It's so nice.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it's nice when, like a show producer will, definitely take a chance on out of town comic. And, especially if you can get them on a show, if you got something going on that week. Because when people reach out to me and, like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you have anything? If I do, I will try and get them on a show because for me, it's like I want to see different talent. I want to see other comics, and I think it's good for the show because it mixes it up, and because depending on the type of show you do, especially if it's just like all local comics and stuff, or depending on how you run your shows and things like that. Like for me, when I run my shows I run on time. I run them tight, and yeah, I try to not repeat my lineups.
That's so great.
Yeah, I've repeat like my monthly show. I've only repeated a lineup once, and that was for the first year anniversary because I wanted to do something a little different. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get everyone who was on the first show, get them all to come back, and I thought that would be neat. So I did that, and yeah, it's kind of where I'm at.
That's super. I love talking with you. I've got 2 or 3 other people in mind, names to send you for Vegas.
Yeah, I
To
would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, I'm gonna go, and thank you so much for watching this. And Ron Caine, thank you so much for taking your time to enlighten my people. And I'll share it a few times here and there to my followers on TikTok or Facebook, Instagram, wherever I'm at.
No, thank you
Thank
for having me on again, Linda. It was great talking to you again. I'm
Great to
glad to
talk
see
to
you're
you.
I'm glad to see you're doing well. So,
Thank you
um,
likewise.
thank you.
Okay, and tell your wife that she's special. If she's out encouraging your comedy, she's a rare find. I've seen a lot of wives that, not in Vegas, anywhere, who, say they're supportive, but you don't feel it.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I've
That's
seen.
really awesome. Thank you so much, Ron Caine. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.